Rowan from the back. Here we go. Look at Wayne Buck. Wayne Buck has come right up from the back. He's now moved.
Just before we get the ball rolling, I've got to say this is a big privilege for me because you've been someone that I idolised when I was a little boy. So Wayne Monk that's sitting in front of me, who would you say you are?
Been around a long time. I'm probably, I'm past being a really, really competitive rider, but every now and again I will have a ride. But yeah, I've raced sidecars for probably over 20, 25 years, and I did a career of 10 years prior to that on solo.
Where did you come from? Where did you grow up?
Mate, I was basically bred in Townsville. Did all my schooling up there. Started work up there. I did an apprenticeship up there as a house painter at that stage. Had a lot of friends up there that were still tied up with Speedway, like Peter Christopher. We were good buddies and we used to run the streets together, and lots of other solo riders. Merv Jenkins, another name you'd remember. And yeah, we just did our thing and we all took up riding Speedway and everything at the same time. Yeah, so we had a good time. It was mainly the opening of Pioneer Park, which was 1974. We all rode there then. But prior to that, we all rode stock bikes and scrambles and, stockies and stuff like that.
For the second heat of the sidecars, Wayne Monk and Shane Corson, the Mad Monk, in the red and gold. He doesn't wear leathers, he wears the silks, like the jockeys do. There they go. Have a look at Monk.
What did you get involved with first? Were you trying to paddock bash and learning to drive cars, or was it motorbikes, or what came along first?
So yeah, I rode solos around Pioneer Park the first night it ever opened, which was in 74. And then I rode solos for probably 10 years, and then the opportunity come along for me to have a ride on a sidecar. Bob Cowley from the Gold Coast. I was living in Brisbane at that time. I married a Brisbane girl in 77 and we moved to Brisbane in 78. And then continued riding solos, and I'd stopped riding solos, and then Bob Cowley from Gold Coast Motorcycle Records put a bike together and I was offered a ride on that, and that was my first time I sat on a sidecar, and we went forward from there.
What kind of bike was it? Like what kind of engine and frame and things like that?
It was the old A type frames. It was one that Brian Payne built, and it had a V-twin Yamaha in it, XB1000 Yamaha in it. That was our first bike, and it went all right. We won an Australian Sport Track title on that bike at Oxley. Got a couple of seconds in Queensland titles and went through to Aussie titles and things like that with it, yeah.
Leading at the moment from Bill Sewell Jr. and Dion Krause. And crashing through there, don't they? Give them plenty of different marks. There goes the Mad Monk.
When you're saying Oxley, was that the old Sidewinders out near the Records and all that?
Yep, that's right, correct. Yeah, it was an oil-based track then, yeah.
So for the people at home that aren't really sure about different surfaces and whatever, what is an oil-based track?
An oil-based track was mainly designed for dirt track riders in them days. They used to run the, like your wet weather slicks on them and things like that. But as time went on, environmental rules and all that stopped all that stuff. But they did run about 3 or 4 years of speedway bikes actually racing these Australian small track titles. And Phil McCurdane, I think, won a couple of them, and I won one there at Oxley. I mean, we never had all the big names. There was a field of riders, but there weren't, there was no Darren Trelaws in it or anything like that in them days. So yeah, I ended up picking up one of them at Oxley, yeah.
I want to touch on how I knew about you first. So my father had a panel shop out at Minogra called Powers Bodyworks, and I remember that era when I was very little, going to like Chandler Speedway and the Ekka and things like that. And I distinctly, without fail, remember your name, how you were dressed and everything. Now, you knew my father and he had a lot of guys stopping in Saturdays and whatever. What were you doing around the area at the time for a job?
Probably a few doors up on the other side of the road. I was a garbo. I'd become a garbo with the names like Doug Stewart, which is my brother-in-law, and then there was Mike Farrell. We're all garbos. Mike Farrell was a fairly talented, well, he's a very talented solo rider in the day. And we worked with the local council garbage there, chasing garbage bins around the city. And your dad's shop was across the road up about 400 metres, and obviously Michael knew him, and so we all got to know him, and we used to stop in there from time to time to have a yap and say good day.
I first remember you racing around, and one time that stands out of my mind, I've actually found the footage, is I think 1991 at Chandler. I think it was Bruce Penhall and John Tipman test match racing or whatever, and you were wearing jockey silks. How'd they come about?
Trying to make it 2 in a row. Phil Rowan and Scott Petty. He hasn't got far to go. He's only got half a lap to do it in. Out of turn 3, doing a bit of a Victor job there. Here comes the Monk. Have a look at this on the inside, and he's got it. Wayne Monk, the winner. Second place is going to Phil Rowan and Scott Petty. And third place to Bill Searle Jr. and Dion Prowse. Aren't they?
They come about just a little bit of, bit glittery, like just to layer things up a little bit, something a little bit different. And so, yeah, my wife made them up for me and my passenger. And, yeah, they were a bit of a hit. They went pretty good. We had quite a few sets of them. And even these days, you see guys that had a bit of a go at it. They do it as well, So, yeah, it was just to get away from the plain old black leathers and things like that, just put a bit of colour into it. In that meeting too, I remember it was Bruce Penhall. There was also Bobby Schwartz was there as well. So it was quite a good meeting. That was their opening meeting of Chandler.
I was in grade 1, and I still remember your name from that, and I'm 36 now, so we're still talking about it now. So how good did those silks go over?
Yeah, they were good. So I'm a little bit older than you, Doug.
My favourite pub stories I've ever told people, and I still giggle myself stupid sometimes on the drives up north and that. Tell me some of the carry on with the riders' briefings.
With this interview, you've rang at the wrong time, so I've just recorded Home and Away so I can watch it later. But I've actually watched Home and Away ever since it started, which is 32 years ago. And yeah, I'd always get a bit of mileage out of Home and Away at a riders' briefing, that's for sure. So no, it's just a bit of fun, a bit of humour. We all got to have a giggle in life, eh?
I used to be at the back of these riders' briefings, even if I was mechanicking or commentating, and as soon as I knew you were racing, as soon as I knew you were there somewhere, I'd race straight to the front, and I'd be there like a dog, just shaking, trying to hold it in, because I knew something was coming, and it was the best thing ever. So why Home and Away?
Oh, the Home and Away, I've always liked it. It's been a good story. It's, I guess, you'd be surprised what sort of people watch Home and Away pretty regularly. One story down the Gold Coast, it was when there was a stalker in the show, and it went on and on for weeks, the stalker. And we're at a riders' briefing. We had some interstate riders there and a couple of big gorillas, with all the big arms and the tattoos and that. And I'd bring up, who's the stalker? Who do we reckon the stalker is? And no one did. They all had their little giggles. And the referee go, do we have to keep hearing about Home and Away? And walking back to the pits, 2 of these big gorillas, I think it's this one, I really do. I think it's this bloke or that bloke. And you think, well, there you go, like all sorts of people watch Home and Away. But it's been a good show, and I've really created a lot of giggles out of it. And it's just a little play that I've always played with, when I go to these riders' briefings.
And here I am now. While you were talking, I was choking it back because I was starting to get the giggles on again. But You're a lover of sweet things as well, and in my opinion, the best canteen at a racetrack I've ever been to was Brandon Flat Track. They had really good carrot cake. What's your favourite venue for canteen food? Who's got the best food?
It was always home cooked, being the Burdekin being a farming town, and you always get a good spaghetti bolognese at Brandon Speedway, and your carrot cakes and things like that. Yeah, no, it was good.
You've done a lot of racing in your time, and from what I know, and I've purchased a lot of books and done a bit of research, you've definitely made a lot of finals and all this sort of thing. So when did you start riding sidecars and it really start becoming easy or clicking? When did it start you get a bit of a roll going?
85 or 86. I rode with Bob for about 8 or 9 years, and we had some good racing. And then when these more, like I rode a lot of I rode styles of bikes that were different to everybody else. Like I had a rear engine FJ 1100 motor where it sat behind me, I sat in front of the motor. Then I rode the V-twin Godden in a Peter Campbell frame. And by then all your, all your Mitchell frames are out. So I was still riding a lot of experimental stuff. I gave it away then for about 8 years. And I came back and I bought a Mitchell frame. I actually bought it off Bob Cowley and Phil Rowan. Had a Kawasaki in it, and I just said, wow, how much easier is this? And away we went, it sort of really clicked, and I found it a lot easier to ride, and I could ride a lot more competitive. And I think it was when I hopped on a Mitchell frame.
It's very interesting you say that, because we've talked either side of this interview many, many times, and I was so fascinated when you started going through bike setups. And the key to remember here for everyone else that's going to hear this is what works for you. But you had particular things you like to do. And tell me why you would do them and what result you'd get.
Well, I started out on that Mitchell frame that I bought off of Phil Rowan and Bob Cowley, and it was the same as everybody's, and we went good, and I just always wanted to tinker and just try and make things a little bit better and just try things. And one thing I used to run is, I used to run a lot more toe out in my sidecar wheel than most people, because I look at sidecars as 3-wheel sprint cars. And when you see a sprint car driver get out of his car after 50 laps and he's just won the feature, he's a good driver with really, really good setup, and he's hardly even puff and win, like he's still fresh. Where if you haven't got a good setup or the right setup, when you get out or when you get off the bike, it's hard work, So the bike's got to be, to me, easy to ride. And our advantage with the bike being easy to ride over a sprint car is we can actually manoeuvre our bodies around, where a sprint car driver, he's strapped into it and he can't move. So what I started playing with was toe out and the sidecar wheel. I started putting a smaller sidecar wheel on to put more tyre on the track out the start line. Because as you know, the bigger wheels, they lay over a bit, so you're not getting the full amount of the back tyre on the ground. And the one big thing I tried is I pulled the front axle back 20 mils. So that shortened it, which to me basically is like a late model road bike where you're steepening the steering head by doing that. And it made the bike turn really fast and really and quite easy to ride. There was no actual push in the front of the bike. So if it turned easy and went into the corner easy, you had the sidecar wheel towed out. So that took away all that side grip. You got no push, well then you could make it drive by manoeuvring your weight around on the bike, You use your weight to make it go forward from there.
Like we said, I just want to say this again, is that's what worked for you. And I noticed your riding style, you were never pushing towards the wall or anything. You were just there, just nice and easy. And you'd move over on the straights and things like that, but it worked for you. And
it did. Yeah, I found it quite good for me. you know, I'm never going to say I'm a Darren Trelaw. I mean, Darren Trelaw's the best rider there is, and he's got his ways of doing things, and he does changes to his frame. But for me, I've never been a super strong person or a super fit person, so I had to make the bike work easy, and it worked. You know, there's also there's lots of little tricks like toe on the back wheel one way or the other on a heavy track or a slick track or whatever. And I learnt that toe on the back wheel from solo day. That was one of the big things you learnt riding a solo. But yeah, no, it worked for me. And at the end of the day, the easier it is to ride, and if you can manoeuvre the bike and get your arms straight sooner than the next bloke through a corner, well then if your arms are straight and you're pushing back up the back of the seat, well then the bike's going in a straight line. You know, you've got rid of that sideways motion, and the thing will actually steer out of the corner.
You said that I was all you'd ever want.
What are some of the faster tracks you've been on where it's actually given you a bit of a minute to go, wow, I'm really going quick here?
You swore that you would never break.
Tamworth long track. We did a few meetings down there, and the first time we went there, I think it was Jason Aldrich won it, and Justin Playstead come second, and I got third in that meeting. And like we were taking 9 teeth off the back of these things, and you're actually going up the straights. The motor was, you know, you take 9 teeth off a motor, you need a good motor to pull that, and it'd be bogging all the way out of the corners and all the way up the straight, and you had a bit of a rest. But we had a friend there, he had a speed camera, and the 3 of us were doing 190 k's an hour as we're entering the corner, and on a sidecar, that's pretty fast on a big track, you know, like it was a bit of an adrenaline rush. It was one of them things you didn't want nothing to go wrong, that's for sure.
So you also rode tracks, I'm sure of it, like Chandler, that were very, very small. And what is it like to go from running the massive tracks and then in the years gone by, you've run the tiny, tiny tracks? Like, is it just all a chasing setup sort of thing?
Smart, you know. A big track, you can allow the bike to, you know, use the whole track. You can get out mid-track and just keep the thing in line and just keep gaining speed. You don't want to try and wash off a lot of speed. You're obviously going into the corner, you wash a bit. But when you get on little tracks like Chandler, you need to just sit on the pole line. So you basically, you're sort of going slower to go faster. You know what I mean? Like if you ride that thing absolutely flat out into that corner, and then you move off the pole line, well then someone's going to come through underneath you. So, and same, the other track that was really way like that, and they had great finals up there, was Pioneer Park. Pioneer Park was always hard and slick, and that's just the nature of the country up there. It's always very hot and humid in the race season. So your finals, you had the best 4 got to the final, and your finals were so close it wasn't funny, but the times were always 2 seconds slower because the track was that hard and slick. It was all about keeping the bike on the pole line. And the minute you moved off it, there'd be 2 bikes there to go running in underneath you and put you out in the middle of the track, you know. So, but yeah, there's a bit of skill. You've got to use your brains a bit. Yeah, you've got to go slower to go faster, is what I'm saying, is you're not actually going faster, but if you go a bit slower, you're going to win the race.
We talked about passing and things like that on tracks and actually looking past the front wheel. Can you explain what you're actually doing and what you get as a benefit from that?
Well, when I went up to Pioneer Park, I probably shouldn't say this. I mean, Scotty Christopher was the best rider in the world as far as I'm concerned, but I could regularly beat him around there once I got my little short front end and things like that. But I could drift in underneath him, and you could just drift him without going fast, without throwing the bike into the corner. You could just steer it in, and the thing would just get a nice little drift. And at the apex of the corner, because that's your second turn in any corner, is your apex. I used to watch Scotty's front wheel, and he'd get a little bit of push. And the minute it got that push, I just gassed this thing and just, when you get a bit of push, you're going to go off the pole line. Then I just run up the inside and go straight past him. And I mean, not taking nothing away from Scotty Crystal. He's an awesome guy and an awesome rider, but they're just things I probably rode with my head a bit more than when I was younger. You know, when you were younger, it was full bore ahead, but as you got older, you rode smarter. So I used to look for those sort of things all the time with the right setup. And yeah, but anyway, no, it's just the way I did it, and it seemed to work for me all right.
Yeah, you come from the era of, like we said, black leathers and, you know, quite plain things, and that's fine because that's where everything started. But as you were, last time I saw you ride, you had really, really great presenting Kevlars and that. Now, you struck up a relationship with Barry Raffin from Brisbane. How did that all come about?
Barry was a neighbour of mine, sort of. We both lived in Deagon. And I went around, sat on his veranda there one day with him, and I just said, look, I want to get back into racing. And I really probably wouldn't mind building a dirt track sidecar, which I knew Barry used to do a lot of, and he won 5 or 6 Aussie titles on them things. And he just basically said straight out to me, he said, why would you do that when you were such a good sidecar rider, speedway sidecar rider? Why wouldn't you just go and get back on a speedway sidecar? And I thought about it, and I thought, yeah, you're right. So we did. Barry and I both went down and we bought that Bible for Bob Cowley, and then from then on, we were neighbours and we knew one another, but we weren't real mates. And to be honest, he's probably the best mate I've ever had in my life, and we're still great mates today. And we've helped one another. He used to spend many nights over home, and we rebuilt the engines and things like that. And he taught me a lot about it. And even today, he's an awesome tuner. He's an awesome builder and an awesome tuner. And we had a lot of success, you know. So yeah, that's where Barry come into it. Yeah.